Come and take them, baby. Oh, woo! That's right. Welcome to the garage. Our good buddy Corey Plow screaming it out. Garage Politics. Come and take them. Our official song here in the garage with Buzz Rankin
and the Common Patriot.
Welcome to another week of Garage Politics. While we're right here talking about Garage Politics, we're going to let you know we got a website. Look at that. Hey, man, we just keep it on rolling. Hop on over to www.garagepolitics.com. You can check out all the fun stuff. There's an archive section, past shows, and some of our parody songs and whatnot that you could go there. You could check it out. All our social media links, mainly the Rumble, but we've also got YouTube, Facebook, Twitter is up there, which we just tweeted out. Let you know we're in the garage. We're recording right now and hoping to eventually get to a point where we're back to a live show. We can take callers. We can have a little chat room. People can engage, get offended, feelings hurt. We can offer a box of tissues and all kinds of stuff and get back to what we do here in the garage. It's so awesome. I'm so excited. Another week.
You should be excited.
I should be.
It's always exciting when we come to the garage.
It is. My wife says I'm too excited too often. We won't go there. Anyways. So check out our website. That's always a fun place to go to. So if you notice, we got a neat little background because this week on the show, we're going to be doing some talking about elections again.
Yep, session two.
Ooh, session two.
I told you, between now and the election, it's all about the election.
But before we do that, I've gone ahead and done a little section this week, and I think it's one that actually some people watched in the past, and they said, we dig that section. We're going to do a little... They said, what?
Kicking.
Mr. Meow Meowkins there was like, oh my gosh, can you believe he said that? It's a terrible thing. Oh, look, a singular camera on me, El Buzzo. So we'll start there. Anyway, so here's the whole deal with They Said What. So I'm going to read a comment that was made this week, or was it? So basically, I'll give you a few multiple choice, which could be possibly one of the people maybe said it, or you just call my bluff and say, well, I think that one's complete crap. So,
okay.
So here goes the quote for this week. So basically it says, we invested an additional $12 billion into community banks because we know community banks are in the community and understand the needs and desires of that community as well as the talent and capacity of community.
Now,
so was that A, former President Donald Trump, B, Representative Jackie Walorski, C, President Joe Biden, D, California Governor Gavin Newsom, or E, Vice President Kamala Harris, or was it just crap? Did I get you on this one? Do you know this one?
I think I know that one.
You know who said this?
It just sounds, there's only, well, there are a couple of people that sound that way, but on your list, there's only one person that talks like that.
Okay, who is it?
Kamala Harris.
All right. And you got it this week. So the answer is E, Kamala Harris. She made this statement while giving a speech in South Carolina at Claflin University. This was back in September. Even though our current vice president and our president of the United States, Sleepy Joe, continue to make regular idiotic statements and slip-ups like this, it's amazing that I've noticed that none of the comedians out there, not even like the Saturday Night Live, where they love to do the satire of making fun of this kind of stuff, no comedians out there pick apart Joe and Kamala. No. They all just... They let it go and let it go and let it go. And you know what it is? They don't want to make fun of the idiots they actually put in office.
You should have watched and he's done a few of them. He's been on some shows. That Rob Schneider's done some interviews lately. You should have watched and listened to him. He said he knew the moment that Saturday Night Live was dead.
Yeah.
And I believe it was, I'm pretty sure it was when Hillary was on the show.
Oh, yeah.
And he said she came out and basically went into this thing about basically a political speech about what was wrong with the other side and these things. And he said he was waiting for the punchline, and when he realized at the end that there wasn't going to be a punchline,
it was just a plug for Hillary.
He said, "Oh, please, don't do it. Don't do it." He's like, "Oh," he said, "Saturday Night Live is dead.
Yeah.
It's done." That's
and
it.
And they don't. They still continue. Let's make fun of Trump.
Yeah.
Heck, they even go. What was his name? I can't even think. There was a candidate from back like in 2008 or something like that, and I'm like, y'all still pick on him. Won't do anything about Joe or any of them. So, you know what's sad about that? So you get like a double thing of they said what tonight. So because one of the options in there was part of another screw up that good old Potchus screwed up himself. B, Representative Jackie Walorski.
Right. Oh,
so back in September, Joe is doing a press conference in the White House. This is on live TV.
Is Jackie
now,
here?
The unfortunate side is Jackie was the former Indiana representative. She died on August 3rd in a fatal car accident, which that's very tragic. But good old Sleepy Joe on September 28th forgot all about that and was like, and we'd like to applaud Jackie. Jackie, where are you? Where are you at, Jackie? Are you here? Oh my gosh. No. And it's almost unbearable sometime to watch.
It's embarrassing.
Stuff. It is.
It's totally embarrassing.
Hey, you know what? Puppet masters behind Joe, please let that poor man off the strings. Get him out of there.
Well, I've said it before. You agreed. You and I have both said it. I blame his wife.
Oh, I do.
His wife is letting this.
She's
is
supposed to be a doctor.
This is abuse. Trust me, I don't agree with any policy that Joe Biden has ever supported.
But he's still a human being. For Pete's sake, pull the man out of there.
It's tragic and it's horrifying because of what's going on. Now? I don't believe for a second that he's alert enough to do anything. But the people behind him, like you say, the puppet masters pulling the strings, they're destroying the country.
They are. One fabric at a time. Actually, it's not even one fabric at a time.
Oh no, they're ripping it to shreds in
pretty much
groups.
So since tonight, that was pretty much the only episode we got. You know what, though? Patriots' whole thing always is, he's always on a soapbox.
I should just carry one around with
me. You should. It's so funny because of the week. I love him to death. But, man, you get him reared up on anything. Don't ask him open-ended questions.
I'm going to tell you guys, I'm going to tell everybody to be ready. I just sat here and sort of calculated the night. So tonight's the 24th. Next Monday is the 31st, and then we will do our final election edition on the night before voting.
Yep,
and I've got some interesting things to discuss. I have a very purpose-selected set of information to discuss the evening before the election.
Yes. I like it. Maybe next week we could cover some of these idiotic ad campaigns we had talked about on a previous show.
I like that idea. Let's do ad campaigns. Yeah. Let's talk about
because we can have some clips from them to show the lies that they're telling of, I've never done that in my life.
I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll make next week's show twofold, right?
Okay.
One, we can talk. I'm going to ask you to go look up a whole bunch of different ads.
Ooh,
right?
All right.
I'm going to leave that to you. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to go back in history to some of the previous political campaigns.
Sounds awesome.
I'm going to pull up some stuff that will probably shock some of you when I deliver it to you. You're going. I've heard
shocking stuff for Halloween night.
I've heard people say. We've all heard people make the comment. Oh, it's just never. It's so terrible. It's never been so bad. I got news for you. You have no idea. Yeah, so we'll do that, and then the night before election night is really. I'm going to go ahead and give you this tip. The night before the election is going to be meant as an encouraging, exhorting message on our election and on the republic and us individually.
Sweet.
So
you're gonna talk about me individually?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes, absolutely.
I like
we'll
when we
talk about you individually.
Me.
So let's do session 2 tonight. If you recall last week, we talked about different issues, voter ID, absentee ballots, all kinds of fun stuff. And so we got a couple of items that we need to roll back on and revisit a little bit. I had a comment that came in that was very valid, very reasonable.
Excellent.
And we left a couple of things out. Okay. So first, let's revisit early voting. Okay, one of our devoted listeners for the show wrote in and let me know that that they really, really love the show. And I'm telling all you guys, I just let you know up front. I for the most part, except for a couple of times when we've related some personal stories, I try not to to use everybody's names on comments they make in that. Now,
Well,
if you don't
use
care,
names. Don't use names.
if you don't care and you want me to use your name, you'll have to send me a message and tell me.
Yeah.
By the way, if you want to communicate with us, please feel free. admin@garagepolitics.net. You have a complaint, have a question, if you think I'm an idiot, if you think I'm wrong, if whatever. Send your complaints. Admin@garagepolitics. Buzz will go through those.
If I will. I was going to say, and all of my adoring fans can send their love emails to there too. So yeah, love you guys too.
So yeah, no matter what it is, that email is open and running. You're free to send whatever.
I like how you threw that on me. It's like, and Buzz.
Oh, I've got that. I take care of the email.
You should, man. You should.
So anyway, viewer,
right.
I got to stop saying listener. I keep saying listeners because that's how we used to do it when we were on the radio.
Well, they're
show
listening.
Well, they're viewers though. I need to.
But
start
they're
saying
listening.
Viewers. They're listening too.
Well, could if you watched it without sound, you pretty much just see me and you over here, just waving hands and mouths moving.
I got
so
you.
they are listeners.
So early
They're
voting.
spectators.
You and I made the statement. Now, to sort of qualify, I didn't get into too much back and forth with them, but
Right.
I made the comment that early voting, I think you and I both pretty much agreed, early voting to us was just
We agreed, and I think I
ridiculous.
brought up the point on the show that I could see in the case of a military personnel that was possibly getting ready to be deployed. They're not going to be here for even the absentee ballots and stuff. Yeah. That would be the only.
But the core purpose, the core exception we were talking about when it came to whether it was early voting or absentee voting was that there should be a reason for that. It should be a valid
it should
purpose. Not, as you put it, right? That, well, I'm too old and I just don't like crowds and I don't feel like going.
I'm 63 years old and I don't like dealing with people in crowds, so I should be able to go 22 days ahead of everybody else.
What this viewer brought up I thought was very valid, that in the world today, in our economy and the types of jobs that people have, it is not uncommon for people to have jobs that require them to travel, to do lots of things.
And I actually used to have
people
one of those.
People who are consultants and they're moving around and going places. So it's a totally valid purpose of having the early voting. And it also highlighted the idea, look, I know when I was working as a consultant, there would be time periods where I would be out of town for 2-3 weeks at a time.
Well, back when I was a construction supervisor, I had to travel all over the country. There were times that I had no choice. I was out of state. I was in a totally different state.
Right.
There was no way I was getting back in time.
And the point was made, which I had sort of overlooked, that in these circumstances where this is a temporary dislocation, you're not out of the country on a long-term period. You don't legally qualify for an absentee ballot.
Well, because you don't have a forwarding address or any of that stuff.
So the option there is early voting. So touche, got me on that one. You're absolutely correct. That's a valid reason. So there's my changed my mind once for this year. There you go.
I just marked on our war board here, listener 1, Patriot 0.
There you go. So we've covered our early voting. I still maintain, though, it needs to be for valid purposes. It's not just because you want to go to early voting, right?
Yes.
So I think we probably all agree on that.
Excellent.
I left an item off last week. I addressed absentee ballots, voter ID, early voting, right? We didn't talk about mail-in ballots. Now, to me, more so than any other stuff that we had done, probably knocks early voting down substantially now. The number one, I'm just going to call it, the number one voting evil that I saw going back to 2020 and what have you, were these mail-in ballots for a couple of reasons. One, because it became common in many of the districts that were discussed during the 2020 cycle to see mail-in ballots coming back late, mail-in ballots coming back with no signatures. There was a serious issue with chain of custody on these things.
Yep.
These were part and parcel of the whole issue with drop boxes. The mail-in ballots were a big deal with the drop boxes.
Yep.
And so I think the mail-in balloting, the other thing, the big deal to me was they had fought so hard, and one of the key things that was being altered in some of these states that were at issue was this idea that they were just going to push out the mail-in ballots.
Okay.
Right?
Right.
So they were bringing it together with the so-called motor voter registration process where you go to the DMV and you get registered. There's been this push, and it was part of that bill Nancy Pelosi was trying to slide through and get everybody to agree to that nationalize these rules. What they were trying to do is make it so that when you went in, for example, to get a driver's license, automatically registered. Now, today, you have to opt in. You have to say, I want to register. Here's the party I want to register for,
Right.
or I'm not registering, right? What they wanted to do was turn it into an automatic registration, and then if you registered to vote, you automatically got a mail-in ballot, right?
Right.
And so if you think about the possible chaos caused there, so I'm not a mail-in ballot person. I go vote in person. So I'm going to vote in person, but I've gotten a mail-in ballot. Depending on where they send it to, if they send it to my old address, if something else is going on, who knows what's happening with that nonsense. It's just problematic. It's an issue. So the mail-in ballots, and if anybody got questions, if you think it's a fantastic idea and you think we're nuts to say that we don't like it, I just think, again, it's a fantastic opportunity for potential fraud and shenanigans.
Agreed.
And I'm actually for shenanigan-free voting.
I like
all the time.
Free voting.
I'm all for shenanigan free. It's just like, those are rules, right? I want shenanigan free voting, no dead people, right?
Yes.
You have to ask for a ballot. When you ask for a ballot, you have to prove that you're the voter, right? And if you don't live here anymore or you haven't voted for a long time, we don't give you a ballot and we don't register you.
That should be a Garage Politics bumper sticker. No shenanigans.
No shenanigans. I like
it. No shenanigans with a cross to it.
Actually, no shenanigans with a little shillelagh on top. You got to have a shillelagh if you're going to have shenanigans.
Shenanigans. Shenanigan free zone.
Yeah, right? Shenanigan free zone.
Take your shenanigans out.
So right after the mail-in ballots, I made a note here about the ballot drop boxes.
Okay.
That was... If you did not watch Dinesh D'Souza's documentary, 2,000 Mules, do yourself a favor. Go ahead and get a copy of that at, I believe that's at Salem Now. I think that's where that's the affiliation. Double check that for me, Buzz, if you can.
You said Salem Now.
Salem Now. I think that's at Larry Elder's group over there, Salem Now. That's where Andrew Wilkow went to work, and you got, that's where the new Uncle Tom movie's at.
Yep.
But I'm pretty sure that Dinesh D'Souza is involved with. That's where he releases his stuff.
And what was the name of his book?
2,000 Mules. Right
it's
there.
right there.
There
it's
it is.
Right there.
That movie that documentary is fantastic. If you're one of those people that said, "Oh, this is nonsense. There was no fraud. These people were not doing anything untoward. That's ridiculous. This was the safest and freest election, most secure election in the history of the United States."
Right.
Watch 2,000 Mules, and then come back and tell me what you think.
Yeah. Heck, it was apparent just in Atlanta, all those.
Now,
so we won't even go there yet.
So we didn't get too deep into those items. That they are what they are. That's fine. I made notes for myself, made them last week, and started delving into it. And it's proven to be more information than I had imagined with the limited time we have to prepare each week. So I've learned two things. One, I'm going to have to start preparing for large things like this several weeks out and not the week of. But I had made notes about the states that we had questions about during the 2020 election cycle. Okay? Georgia, Ohio, was it Wisconsin, Arizona, Pennsylvania, and so on, right? Michigan. And my intention was to go, and again, we only had, this is the second show. We've got two more left before the election, so there wasn't enough time, I don't think, to go through every one of them. So I decided to focus on Georgia. I wanted to talk about the election law because what's transpired since the 2020 election, while they've locked up January 6 protesters and kept them jailed, and what you've heard from the moment that election was carried off, okay, and it requires some objectivity. Okay, you have to step back a little bit. You can't just be a partisan about it. You've got to step back and think about what happened, what was said, what was done, how did this all work? Well, first of all, ask yourself, if you're being honest, okay, look at that situation at the rally that was going on that day where Trump was at and the things that he said. Now, what the Democrats have done a masterful job of, what the left has done a wonderful job of, is dissecting up all of those video segments, all of those speech parts, and distilling it down to the pieces they wanted to show things the way they wanted everybody to see them. Okay? But without getting too deep into that, because that has just been beat to death by numerous hosts and everything, but I wanted to use that as a launching pad to discuss the concept that you have heard nothing from the left since the election,
right,
and January 6th, except the big lie, 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 the big lie. We've heard it over and over again, ad nauseum. I mean, it's just ridiculous. And they have branched off of that. Anything you say that either questions, looks at, or says, we might want to make sure that everything is kosher there. And there is an absolute denial that anyone on the right, anyone in Trump's camp, anyone that was a Republican, a conservative, whatever, anyone who was not on the left, there is absolutely no consideration that the people not on the left were not trying to overthrow the republic. They were not trying to run a coup. What they wanted was for everyone to take a deep breath, take a step back, and say, hold on a second. Now, wait. There were laws violated in some of these states. There were laws violated because the legislature, the duly elected legislature, passed a law. Some of those had been in place for quite some time. There were rules about how ballots were processed, how you could obtain ballots, how you could deliver them, how they were counted, how they were, whether they were validated, how that was done. There were laws on the books for all of that, okay? And in many cases, Pennsylvania was one, Georgia was one, election officials, we talked a little about this last week, election officials made decisions in the supposed COVID era, we were told, that we needed to do things to be considerate of people's health and safety, which included mail-in ballots. That was their big one, right? Big surprise, that happens to be one of the most fraud, possible methods you could possibly select, right? And by the way, I never thought to go down that road because, again, it's something a lot of other hosts have done. We're not just talking about myself or other conservatives saying that. You're talking about people on the left who are part of denying that anything was wrong with that election, people who have accused Republicans, conservatives, anyone who's not their party of running a coup, of wanting to overturn the election, overturn the country, blah, blah, blah. You have people on the left who have said that, who were part of election commissions in years past, who came to the conclusion that the one way you should not receive votes and deal with because it was so prone to fraud was mail-in ballots.
Right.
They've said it over and over again. But anyway, we got through that, and it is what it is. It's done what it's done. That's a fait accompli. It's over. However, immediately you had many politicians, many state officials, grassroots organizations, and others that said, okay, all right, you got us. You nailed us. Let's focus on the future. This can't happen again. And so you had some states that began working on their voter ID and the rules for their elections, passing laws, new voter laws to make sure that these sorts of things did not happen. You had some states, unfortunately, that basically have done jack since 2020. No, we're good with it. We're fine. But I decided that, of all of those states, one of the ones that was the most public, because they jumped on it almost right away, I think. One of the ones that was if you recall, Coca-Cola, Hollywood, everybody lined up against the Georgia election law, the new election law. Oh, we're not going to make any more movies in Georgia, Hollywood said, right? Coca-Cola, this is terrible. They're in Atlanta. Their headquarters is in Atlanta. Oh, this is awful. We're totally against this. We're gonna find a way to boycott. They threatened everything under the sun.
Yep.
To get this to stop, right? It was as bad as the abortion law and then Hollywood went nuts again. Oh, we're not going to do anything. They're taking away a woman's right to choose. But they absolutely lost their minds over this election law. So I thought, you know what? Let's take a look at the election law. Now, I freely admit, I was reading through the election law. I read as much of it as I could get through. If you have not tried reading legislation, it is not exactly enjoyable. So what I did is tried to...
So don't try to entice the listeners to listen to read. It's like,
do not
read legislative law.
No, now look. Now wait a second. I'm telling you. There's a time and a place for it, okay? You should actually read the laws. When they're enacting these things, we ought to take the time to read them as much as we can.
You and the Bramers love doing that.
You know what? It's the only way to know what's actually in the stupid thing.
No, I know.
Right?
Well, that's why we depend on the three of you to read that. Well, the four of you, because you all read that, and that's how we learn.
So what I did was, again, and I assure you, this is not something I do for everything. It depends on who I find is the most reliable based on what I'm reading in the legislation or what I'm seeing in the news, what I'm hearing. The person that lines up, the group that lines up mostly with the information that I feel is accurate. The stuff that I look at and say, okay, they've got that. Now, that doesn't mean, just like I've said with other stuff, I don't trust any of them 100%, so I try to validate it as much as I can. But I pulled some stuff out of off heritage.org, okay? And we went and looked at I went and looked at the Georgia voting law. And I took advantage of the fact that they had broken out some key points, not trying to go through the whole thing. There's an election board that is set up as part of that legislation. It makes provision for them to be able to suspend various election officials who are engaging in wrongdoing. It goes through all kinds of wonderful stuff, okay? So it's not just this, but these were the things that were the most public. These are the things that the left lost their mind on and went out, and it was really it was a repeat of what went on when they started criticizing everybody who said anything about the election or was involved in January 6th. Oh, the big lie, the big lie, the big lie. And that's what they went after. They started calling everything the big lie. Well, the same thing here. They came out, if you recall, if you're paying attention at all to politics and to what was happening in Georgia when they were passing this law, oh, it's racist. They're going to prevent blacks from voting. It's to suppress the vote. They're creating these onerous restrictions. They're taking away voting on the weekend. They're destroying early voting. There's not going to be absentee ballots. You're not going to be able to do this. There's no way for people to follow these rules and get a voter ID. It's going to suppress people from. I mean, it was just a constant onslaught. And I'm certain that it was going on in some of the other states as well. I'm sure they had it in other, but in Georgia, I think
they dubbed that, isn't that the Election Integrity Act of 2021?
That's what Georgia called it.
Or SB 202, which is Senate Bill 202, Georgia Senate Bill 202.
Very good. So, see, he's the color man. He's going to bring color to my commentary.
Because actually, the whole thing on it was introduced February 17th, 2021.
Yep.
Went to the House for the vote, March 25th of 2021.
Yep.
Went to the Senate, voted on March 8th, 2021, and it was signed into law on March 25th, 2021. There you go.
So they went right after it, and I think that's why it was so strident against the law and against anybody that was supporting it, because they wanted so badly to shut it down and stop it, because they knew the changes that were being made were going to make it quite a bit harder for them to do some of the things they had done.
Were following line with what 2/3 of the states already do, which is requires ID to do it. And I know there was a lot more to it, but that was one of the biggest things. And that was the biggest thing that everybody was complaining about, going, you're racist because you're requiring IDs. And you know what's funny? The very first vote after that happened, it was in May. It was like 2 months later.
Yes.
had 212% more people turn out for voting.
Absolutely.
212%.
It's going to suppress the vote.
Higher numbers than ever. And this was after all of the critics were going, oh my God, you're suppressing voters. You're going to make it to where they can't cast their votes. You're going to make it to where you're being racist and it proved them wrong. 212% increase in voters.
We have to take advantage of that comment that Buzz made, that little snippet, because if you didn't see it, okay, Stacey Abrams, the actual governor of Georgia, she had the election stolen from her. Stacey Abrams comes out and they asked her about this.
Yes.
They asked her about this. I watched the video maybe 2 weeks ago. They asked Stacey Abrams. They said, "Well, you guys said they were suppressing the vote, and yet in the last election, in the off-year election that was had." It was, and they gave the numbers on how many more voters, right, across the state. Stacey Abrams goes, I kid you not. How anybody says this with a straight face. Although, remember the whole thing about Kamala Harris? And I said I knew who it was because she speaks word salad. I'm sorry. I apologize to anybody who has a sensitive soul and doesn't like it when I pick on people sometimes. But this woman's a moron. I'm sorry. There's just no two ways around it. She says, well, it's not just about the turnout. It's actually about the access. Are you kidding me?
It's about the access.
It's about the access. Hold on. Somebody needs someone on her staff, a family member, someone needs to take her aside and get her to understand, sweetheart, when that many people vote over and above the numbers from before, it means they all had access to vote.
212% increase is pretty good access.
I know that's hard for your brain to deal with and to process, but don't say stupid things anymore. Anyway, okay. I'm sorry. That was I'm sorry. I have had such a burr about that chick since I won the election. Wait a second. You're out there screaming that Republicans and conservatives are election deniers, and you did nothing but deny the fact that you lost that election.
Yeah.
The whole time. It was stolen from me. They stole it.
I still laugh that the DOJ turned around and sued the state. I'm like, you don't even have any skin in the game. The Department of Justice has nothing to do with the state of Georgia. You can't sue them for putting their own laws into place.
Well, see, you're sidetracking me here.
I'm sorry.
Well, no.
All right, go. Yeah.
Real quick note, we'll have to get back to this and follow and see what's going on with it. I don't want to steal somebody else's thunder because this is being processed by some other shows. But look up James Meek if you haven't seen the news story on this guy. This is James Meek is an investigative reporter. I believe he was working for, was it ABC maybe? I think he was working for ABC. He did anyway, he was doing stories on political corruption. His last tweet was in April of this year, and the tweet was the word facts. Okay?
Right.
Not long after that, his apartment was raided by the FBI. Like 20-some agents raided his apartment.
Right.
James Meek has not been seen since. And there are inquiries ongoing into trying to find out where he is. Nobody, family, agent, the news station he was working for has come out and said he's no longer employed by us and we don't know anything about it. And the guy just disappeared. So now, apparently, in the United States of America, we are disappearing
when you speak the truth.
Reporters who we don't agree with.
Yes.
Now, I don't know what's going on, but it doesn't look right. Anyway. Okay.
Get home close to something for someone.
Yeah, he did some. I'm sorry, I couldn't ignore that one. That was just, I've been watching that the last few days, and that's driving me insane. Anyway, so let's talk about Georgia's election law. Let's go there. We got time to get through this, plenty of time. So these were sort of the high notes, and there's more of it in the legislation. It's very dry. It's not at all enjoyable, but there's more information than just these few pieces I've pulled out of here. So time periods are restricted. This was one of the claims by the left, that the time periods for voting are being restricted. That's how they're going to suppress the vote. Well, let's see. The voting law retained absentee voting.
Yep.
Retained early voting,
yep,
even on Saturdays and Sundays, that type of thing. it's much more progressive in the sense of the left is filled with progressives than Delaware's law. Who's from Delaware? Wait, somebody we know is from Delaware. Buzz? Some Delaware? Who's the guy from Delaware?
I don't know.
Joe Biden. Yeah,
Oh,
that's the guy from Delaware.
See, why do you throw that in there?
I don't know. It was just fun. I like to watch you flop like a fish out of water.
Yeah, you know.
I'm sorry.
Thankfully, I'm off camera.
That was just wrong. He's going to kick my butt later.
Keep it up, and I'll put a really bad background behind you.
It allows counties to set voting hours anywhere between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m.
Right.
And they were saying, oh, they're going to stop voting after 5 o'clock and all this. Well, so here were some of the lies that were told regarding the time period restriction. Joe Biden. What I'm worried about is how un-American this whole initiative is. It's sick. It's sick. Deciding that you're going to end voting at 5 o'clock when working people are just getting off work. Absolute lie. Absolute total lie. Joe Biden lied outright. There you go. The New York Times. The most extensive restriction of voting access in generations and a, quote, breathtaking assertion of partisan power in elections. Most extensive restriction of voting access in generations. Based on what? Yes. Anyway, Coke. Remember I told you Coca-Cola lost their mind about this. Quote, throughout Georgia's legislative session, we provided feedback to members of both legislative chambers and political parties, opposing measures in the bills that would diminish or deter access to voting.
212%.
Additionally, our focus is now on supporting federal legislation, think Nancy Pelosi, that protects voting access and addresses voter suppression across the country.
212%.
More voters, exactly. And Coke was losing their mind. Oh, got to stop this. This has to stop. Patagonia, whoever the hell Patagonia is, right? Is it a clothing company or something like that?
Let's find
Our
out.
democracy is under attack by a new wave of Jim Crow bills that seek to restrict the right to vote.
Yep, it's clothing company.
It is urgent that businesses across the country take a stand and use their brands as a force for good in support of our democracy. Can you look up Patagonia for me and find out where their clothes are manufactured?
Yeah, we're looking right
That'd be
here.
interesting.
Well, they're overpriced to begin with.
Well, we know that, but I want to know where their clothing's manufactured. I got a buck that says it's not manufactured in the United States.
I bet it's not.
Delta Airlines, anybody? Right? Delta, quote, however, I need to make it crystal clear that the final bill is unacceptable and does not match Delta's values. Really? We'd like to hear about your values, Delta. After having time to now fully understand all that is in the bill, coupled with discussions with leaders and employees in the black community, it's evident that the bill includes provisions that will make it harder for many underrepresented voters, particularly black voters, to exercise their constitutional right to elect their representatives. That is wrong. What was the number? 212%.
212%.
Right?
212%.
More voters. I'm not seeing it here. Coca-Cola and Delta losing their minds. Not seeing it. Joe Biden lying about it. Sorry. All right, MailChimp. This has got to be some sort of mail service online. It's isn't it an ad campaign mail service?
You can actually do bulk mailings from there to audiences and stuff.
Okay, MailChimp, quote, SB 202 undermines free and fair elections in our home state of Georgia and will make it harder for people to exercise their right to vote, especially people of color. Georgians deserve better. Law eliminates voting opportunities to suppress the black vote. So that's the first part of it. And there you've got individuals and companies lying about what's in the bill. Who was it? Delta? Was it Delta who says, or is Coke, that they had read the whole thing, right? After having time now, that was Delta, after having time now to fully understand all that is in the bill. Now, translated from their point of view, it means after a leftist politician told me what was in the bill, okay, so when you hear somebody say, after taking time to fully understand all that is in the bill, after my favorite politician explained it to me and made sure I was on their side, I now tell you that it's bad. It's bad. It's really bad. I am not a crook.
It's funny. I'm still over here on Patagonia.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and their whole thing is, let me read this on their site. This is right. This is right from their site. This is great.
Want to hear it?
Everything we make has an impact on the planet.
Yes.
Okay. And including, since everything you do has an impact on the planet, all those tree huggers that support you, do you all realize that the 24 workers out in the California mill factory use duck and goose feathers?
Oh, really? Okay. PETA will love that.
Yeah, how do you think you get those? That's where the duck and goose down is made, but their factory for production, Bangladesh.
Yeah, of course.
Not here in the good old US of A. Yeah, it has an impact, all right?
Okie dokie.
Sweatshops.
Yeah, nice job, guys.
There you
All
go.
right. Well, we don't know their sweatshops. We have to take a look at that. But there's a pretty good chance if it's in Bangladesh, they're working in. Well, now wait a second.
I don't know. I'm 212% sure that it is. No.
Put a note on your Trello. You know what? That's one of those items I want to address at some point. This whole thing of sweatshops. There's
shirts.
No, sweatshop.
Okay.
There's more to the sweatshop thing than just saying that they're not paying these people.
But no, it's just funny. You go to their shop, their thing, and it talks about who we are, where we are, blah blah blah. Our overpriced girls jacket, $219.
$219.
Yeah, you're impacting the planet, all right.
Okay. Patagonia. Yeah. That's who I want my politics from. Right.
I'll pass on their clothing, brand, and everything else. All right.
So the next item. All right, there were claims it eliminates voting opportunities, okay, in order to suppress African American votes.
212%.
Yeah. So the law makes no distinctions based on race. There's nothing in the law, much to the surprise of those who criticize it, that has anything to do with race. Unlike the aforementioned Jim Crow laws.
Well, what I got a question on, these people that are making these allegations, because the biggest whole thing about it was presenting ID. 2/3 of the country already do it. Presenting IDs. Are you insulting the African American or the black culture that they just don't have IDs?
We're going to hold on to that thought, because we're going to wrap all that into a nice bow at the end, right?
Cool.
Okay. Comparisons to Jim Crow laws, which included segregation, poll taxes, grandfather clauses, and literacy tests, are historically ignorant, and they diminish the suffering that were caused by such laws. The concept there is simple. Trying to compare the Georgia voter law to Jim Crow is an absolute insult to the individuals who had to suffer through those god-awful laws.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay? It's horrible. That's like these
any
people,
human being ought to just stand up and go, how dare you? How dare you even compare that?
Well, it's the same as the leftists who are trying to insinuate. They're not insinuating. They're flat out saying that the January 6th, quote unquote, coup was far worse than 9/11, where 3,000 Americans died. Anyway, we don't want to get to. All right.
Anyway, sorry.
Despite the liberal lie that the law ends early voting on Sundays, the bill allows for early voting on Sundays.
Not only that, it mandates 3 weeks of early voting, including 2 Saturdays and 2 Sundays.
Ta-da! So we've said several times, and sometimes we say it and we're not sitting right there with the stats and the information.
212%.
It's very simple, right? You tell a lie. We put the fact out next to it, and you look at that and go,
and like we always do, though, Patriot, we encourage people, guys, we're not just spewing stuff here. Go find it yourself. It's right out there.
And the quotes, I mean, these are out of sources. You can go look these up in the media. This is not stuff that I'm just making up. This is what they said.
I mean, it's out there, and you can find it. And no, it's not on Facebook, because we know if it's on Facebook, it's the gospel.
This was the famous quote by Joe Biden.
Oh, my gosh, this one still gets me.
Famous show. This makes Jim... I'm sorry.
Who wrote this line for
This
him?
makes Jim Crow look like Jim Eagle.
Oh,
What? I mean, this is gigantic, what they're trying to do, and it cannot be sustained.
212%.
Oh, you mean like your all's environmental and energy policies?
Yeah.
Cannot be sustained.
Yeah, because the energy's doing real well under his administration.
Where the
right
hell did he come up with Jim Eagle? What the hell is Jim?
He probably misread it on his cue cards that are written in crayon.
Oh, my God.
My wife will be surprised I called it a crayon and not a crown.
Here's his buddy, Chucky Schumer, right? Senator Chuck Schumer. Republicans recently passed a bill to eliminate early voting on Sunday. I'm sorry, Chuck, you lied. A day when many church-going African Americans participate in voter drives known as Souls to the Polls. Now, I'm not even... Never mind. I'll get to it in a minute. There's that bow coming at the end, right? Look, this one's great.
Oh, here's another one. Elizabeth
Warren,
Warren.
right?
Oh, that's...
Pocahontas. Pocahontas.
Yeah,
Get it? It's a good joke. Pocahontas.
She's catching up to the ugly factor of Pelosi.
The Republican... I'm hearing the guy who did the quote when she got busted, Miss 1/1024th. She got busted for not being an American Indian, being a Native American, and she's out there saying now she's decided she's going to support him. And some guy said, "Why don't you just shut your white face?" And it was a Native American who was telling us like, "Why don't you just stay home and shut your white face?"
Oh my gosh!
Anyway, it's too funny. Senator Elizabeth Warren, the Republican who is sitting in Stacey Abrams' chair. I'm sorry. Oh, just signed a despicable voter suppression bill into law to take Georgia back to Jim Crow.
It's sad that every single one of these liberal Democratic idiots immediately they have turned everything into race, and just it's sad. You want to know who's keeping people segregated, the country segregated? These morons right here. The morons all in office, the morons, the Democrats that are running everything, they're keeping segregation alive right there, guys.
Democrat activist and failed candidate Stacey Abrams, right after Elizabeth Warren. These are laws that respond to an increase in voting by people of color by restricting, removing, or otherwise harming their ability to access these prerequisites.
212%.
It doesn't say brown and black people can't vote. It simply says we're going to remove things that we saw you use to your benefit. We're going to make it harder for you to access these opportunities.
All of the things they're claiming, that it's impacted, it wasn't just people of color using it. It was all colors.
Now,
white, black, Asian, they were all using it, guys.
This last one on this group, this is the stink stir that was very much behind a lot of what went on in these states where they encouraged these election officials to alter the rules. This guy and his group, this is one of your originating members here. Democrat lawyer Mark Elias. These laws are all aimed at disenfranchising black voters and also young voters. Let's throw that in there just for fun, right?
Jeez.
Now, let's go on to the next. There's two more points left with some Democrat comments on it and we're gonna wrap it up a little bit at the end and have some fun with it. Onerous voter ID requirements to suppress the vote. Okay, makes exceptions for people without ID to provide their Social Security number. Sounds very reasonable to me. ID requirements do not suppress voters. That's proven. What was it? 200 and something?
212%.
There you go.
212%.
Claims that African Americans are unable or unwilling to obtain identification are insulting and have no factual basis.
Exactly what I asked just a while ago.
Okay? So here we go. Oh, Facebook got in on the campaign.
Oh, because we know if it's on Facebook, it's the gospel truth.
Quote, we support making voting as accessible and broad-based as possible and oppose efforts to make it harder for people to vote.
Sponsored by Meta.
Facebook, hey, they want to make it voting as accessible and broad-based as possible to include unregistered voters, illegal aliens, dead people, people who don't live in the district anymore.
People that have 13 profiles on Facebook to use each one as a voting platform.
You know? Okay, so Facebook, we take you at your word. We got you. You want it to be as accessible as possible.
Meta.
Google, here's another one, right? We've long created tools and resources to make it easier for people to vote.
And listen in on your home lifestyles.
But knowing how to vote, now I love this one. This is priceless. But knowing how to vote depends on people being able to vote. We're concerned about efforts to restrict voting at a local level.
Oh my gosh.
Wait a second. Let's go back there.
I feel dumber just reading that.
Knowing how to vote depends on people being able to vote. Now, last time I checked, I'm not real sure. I could be completely wrong about this.
Okay, say it. What's it?
Going down and voting sort of involves selecting a person for a particular office in each of the categories available.
Pretty much.
And turning in your ballot.
Yeah.
Now, you either mark it with a pen or you
it's got
punch
the
it
little
out
punch.
with
Yep,
a little
punch.
little
Right.
pen, or you hit the button on
Right.
the electronic machine.
Pretty simple. All three things are pretty simple because they're all the same. It's just a matter of how you mark the card.
I get it. It's like saying that it's not really about turnout. It's about access. That's they're working with Stacey Abrams.
Yes,
That's what it is.
of course.
Okay, I got it.
They are.
Former ESPN personality Jamel Hill, real brain trust here. The new election bill in Georgia is not about showing ID to vote. Republicans are
Republicans are salty.
Republicans are
Really?
salty. The state went blue, and they resent their power was taken away by black voters. They want a rigged game. Oh, that's rich. Because they're too lazy to come up with a new vision and compete for votes. Okay.
You want to know who's lazy? The blue Democrats. Jeez.
Because I don't want to forget it. I'm gonna stop right there for just a moment and say this. You've listened to the things that I'm reading, the things that these people on the left said, and this is one issue, one voter law in Georgia. One thing, not everything. It is not even close to the entirety of the absolute nonsense that comes out of these people's mouths, okay? And quite frankly, out of their brains. He has the audacity to say, never mind we were salty because we lost and everything. There's some truth to that. We didn't like losing, right?
Nobody
We especially
likes
didn't like losing in a rigged election, but that's beside the point, okay? They're too lazy to come up with a new vision and compete for votes. Oh, you mean we can't defeat or come up with something better than the Democrat vision, which is, let's see,
Cheat.
destroying the energy sector. Let's see.
Killing innocent children.
Killing innocent children, right, at will, up to the point of birth, okay? Drag queen story hour for children with grown men dressed like women, ugly grown men, by the way, dressed like women, and twerking their genitalia in front of young children.
Illegally creating laws just because they don't like what they heard.
Changing the rules to things because you don't like them. Telling people what they can and cannot say.
Getting dead people to vote.
Shutting down people on social media because you don't like what they say. And then you run around and tell everybody, well, it's misinformation, disinformation, not the truth.
But
And
we're
we're
salty.
the arbiters of what's true.
But we're salty.
Right. But we're the salty ones. Okay?
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question. When was the last time, think of all the stuff I'm reading right now, when was the last time, other than abortion, illegal aliens, right, unfettered immigration, unfettered illegal immigration, and all of the perversion you can possibly dredge up, when was the last time you ran into a liberal, okay? And I'm using the term liberal knowing that the classical definition of a liberal is nothing like what these leftists are. It has nothing to do with it, okay? When was the last time they espoused much of anything as far as a vision besides these basic concepts? Kill babies, take away your rights, spend more money, whether it's education, healthcare, anything else, spend more money, take more from you in taxes, restrict business, restrict energy, more rules, more regulations, more power for
Evenly distribute wealth that they didn't earn at all.
Here you go. Admin at GaragePolitics.net. I challenge anybody, any person who happens to hear this show, I don't care if it's 2 years from now, send me an email. I want to know about the policy advocated by someone on the left that actually does something that doesn't involve the government taking more of my money, more of my freedom, more of my rights, and then telling me to sit down, shut up, and like it. How about that for an idea?
I don't think they can.
Okay. Sorry. With all due respect to Jamel Hill, and he's a moron.
I have no due respect for him.
Liberal pundit Judd Legume. Legume. Why am I thinking legume? That has something to do with... look up legume. I probably mispronounced his name horribly.
Maybe it's Legum.
Georgia's new law imposes a new ID requirement to return an absentee ballot There is no reason to do this other than Trump's lies. Yeah. Hello. Identity validation, verification to make sure that the person returning the absentee ballot is actually who they say they are. You got a problem with that? Here again, we said it last week. I'm going to say it again. If you oppose things, I'm not even interested in you trying to dig this up and tell me it's all about blacks, it's all about kids, it's all about this, whatever.
Legume is an infection of.
Okay, yeah. I'm sorry. It was striking something in my head. Okay?
Jeez, what a magoo. Boy, I've never seen him before. He's a real magoo.
Ask yourself again. People who oppose reasonable measures to ensure that we have a valid vote cast. Why would you want an invalid vote cast? Because you want to cheat. Period. Right? Very simple. Okay. Here's the last one on the law, and then we've got a couple things to wrap up. This was the most asinine thing.
When I was reading it earlier, I was like, seriously,
process.
this is what they're attacking.
This is the one that I thought, wow, you guys are really reaching. That's the best you could do was those few items. That's what you decided to latch onto. And this one in particular, this is your big gripe, right? That it bans water for voters waiting in line. Okay, first of all, huge lie. Not true, okay? It allows for self-service water from an unattended receptacle, okay? It protects voters from political solicitation within 150 feet of voting building. Florida's been doing that for ages. You are not allowed to electioneer within, it's 150 or however many feet of a polling place in Florida.
Well, because it allows partisan volunteers to try to sway votes.
Yes.
It's
when you pull into any polling place in Florida, there is a plethora of signs for all of the various candidates. It's like their last attempt to go, hey, vote for me.
But within 150 feet, it's not allowed because it's illegal.
Not allowed to have people doing that. And so, okay.
So you could go out to 160 feet and give out free water.
Yep. And by the way, okay. Well, they're not allowed to give out water. You can't have anybody giving it out.
Right. No, but my whole point is, dude.
Yeah.
There could be someone that has nothing to do with the polling place.
Outside of the election.
Outside of the election place. If the lines are that long, if you're a good citizen and you want to give water out, it doesn't matter the color of the person. You give water to anybody you want.
But they're saying the polling place is perfectly within their rights to set up a receptacle with free water.
No,
it says they can do it.
Oh, yes.
The law says, look, you could basically, the polling place, the place that we were going to when I was in Jacksonville was the agriculture center, right? And you park, you walk in, it's right there. They could put a cooler right there with ice and water in it and give out free water all day long.
Well, I think when I was, let's see, where was I living? I was living over on the East Coast, Florida.
Yep.
And when I was voting over there, actually they had the what are they, the Culligan coolers?
Yeah.
There was one of those. If you're thirsty, go get a drink right there.
And it says, by the way, voters are, of course, allowed to bring water with them.
Yes.
So the whole left lost its collective mind because the law says...
I love that was the last thing.
You can't come to the election, to the polling place...
with water.
...and hand out water, giving yourself an opportunity to electioneer.
Right.
Okay? Now, here were some of the lies that were told about this. Once again, hey, guess who else is involved in this again? Joe Biden.
Sleepy Joe.
Look at this. It's an atrocity. You don't need anything else to know that this is nothing but punitive design to keep people from voting. You can't provide water for people about to vote. Give me a break.
212%.
Hey, yeah, Joe, give me a break.
212%.
This is an atrocity. This is the left's... Killing a baby is not a problem. Not being able to hand out water outside a polling place, that's an atrocity. Oh, dear God. Here, the eternal one, James Carville. When is this guy going to drop?
I don't know.
With all due respect to Mary Madeline. Anyway, James Carville. It is going to be illegal to give somebody that's standing in line to vote. Okay? I have never heard of water being an illegal substance in the United States. It's not an illegal substance, you idiot. You Cajun bonehead. It didn't say anything about making water illegal. Dear Walter Schaub, a former director of the U.S. Office of Government Ethics. Now, I'll tell you before reading the first word from this guy. I'd be willing to bet you he had no business running the Office of Government Ethics.
From his statement,
quote,
I agree.
Georgia's bill would make it a crime to give free food or water to voters standing in line for hours and hours. But we know these politicians forced to stand in line all day long. Oh, but we know who these politicians forced to stand in line all day long. I've never once stood in line for even 5 minutes when I go to vote. This racism is thorough. So you've never stood in line when you go to vote, huh? And yet you're accusing somebody else of racism. How come you're getting in? That sounds like privilege to me.
Exactly.
You never stand in line.
I never stand in line. They just
usher me in the back
usher
door.
me
and
into
let me
the
vote.
back door. I get to vote. Me and my 25 dead friends.
They bring my ballot to me.
Yeah. 26 weeks early.
So, okay, now let's talk about that bow for a second. I couldn't resist getting into the one with Jamel Hill. I had to get into that. But we're going to finish up tonight on this note. Every time, now I said last week some things about the idea that every time you hear somebody telling you that there's voter suppression and they're trying to suppress the vote, that they're trying to restrict the franchise, right? They're trying to disenfranchise people. And it's always blacks, minorities, old people, young people, right? In other words, what they tell you generally is you're trying to disenfranchise anybody who's not a single white male. Okay, because that's their message, right?
Well, that's what they always say.
Of course,
that's with everything.
Of course, that also includes Larry Elder and Candace Owens and Walter Williams and Thomas Sowell, and Walter Williams unfortunately has left us now, so it doesn't include him anymore. But it includes everybody who disagrees with them. Anybody who disagrees with them is disenfranchising people from voting. Mm-hmm. This time, I wanted to cover that particular issue and these other things. You look at what they're saying here. Notice, every time the left has a grievance, the argument is never about policy. Where's their policy? Where's the left's policy for how to ensure that we have free and fair elections that count every legal vote? Where are their policies? Where are their suggestions? Now, I'm going to assume since all they're doing is trying to talk this down, they don't have any suggestions. You know why? Because they like the process as it is. They like the process that allows the machine to continue to take advantage of the voting process that is rife with loopholes. That's what they want. They want to be able to go in there and take advantage of the loopholes, longer voting, mail-in ballots, other things, any opportunity to squeeze out an extra vote or two or 10,000 or whatever they need. Okay? And notice, too, once again, I admin at GaragePolitics.net. You send me an email. I want you to send me, and I will stand corrected, send me the email of the conservative. Actually, I want video or audio proof of it, okay? Or a verified article they wrote that I can go verify. Of the conservative, okay? I'll go ahead and take a risk with the Republicans. There's probably some bonehead who's done it here too. But I want you to send me the examples of how much they oppress minorities and women and old people and young people. I want to see it. I want to see their policies that are specifically targeting voters that are minorities and saying, we're going to keep them from voting. Now, one of the boneheads in here says, well, they're not saying that blacks can't vote. They're just taking away their ability to vote. Where? Show me. Show me where that is. Because what you get every time the left doesn't like what's going on, every time they don't like, and you can lie all you want, but on January 6th, by far and away, tens, if not hundreds of thousands of people peacefully gathered, protested what was going on, and said, hey, we want you to look at what happened in Georgia and Pennsylvania and Michigan and Ohio and Wisconsin, in Arizona. We want to see what happened. We want an opportunity to get to the bottom of what it appears could have happened. Now, you had people using language, oh, they stole the election. I'll be honest with you, the night of the election, I was one of them. I'm like, this is bull crap. There's no way, after what they were showing on returns, that he came back and did that. I can't believe it. Again, fait accompli, over and done now. But you have to be honest with yourself when you look at what's going on and the argument, the discourse. It's not a discourse. It's a pure argument in this country right now over voter laws, voter situations, voter methodologies, all of this. And it's because the left is feeling backed into a corner. They are angry, they are frustrated, and they are scared to death that the grip they have had on the election system in many of these places is at risk. They are scared to death that right now, because of their horrendous policies, their leash on the levers of power is at risk. They are facing the potential of losing both houses and being left with an utterly incompetent executive who is not prepared to stand up to them. Now, knowing most Republicans, it won't be that difficult. Most of them don't have a spine anyway. I'm just being honest. That's why I left the Republican Party years ago, because they have no spine.
Yep.
I wish that it were different. I truly wish I could sit here right now as we wrap up this show and tell you that I truly believed that they've learned their lesson. And that on day one, if they take the House and the Senate, on day one, that the House is going to impeach Merrick Garland and Joe Biden and anybody else that has been involved in this travesty of government that has occurred over the past year and a half. That they would go after Fauci, that they would go after the power and privilege of the CDC. I wish I could tell you that I believed for a second that the Republicans, led by conservative newcomers in the new election cycle, would defund and eliminate the Department of Education and the Department of the Interior and a bunch of other places that we just flat out don't need. That they would seriously reform the Department of Energy, okay? That they would get rid of the EPA and the FDA and at this point the FBI. I wish I could tell you that that was what was going to happen, but it's not. You'd be able to knock me over with a light wind and half a feather if any of these people took power and did anything valuable and pertinent to the American people, but they won't. So what we're left with is discussions like this about laws that are the smallest of potential steps forward for the republic, and in the end are likely to mean nothing because the two parties govern simpatico on almost everything.
Yep.
It's ludicrous. So that's session 2 of the election lead up. Okay, we got 2 more. Like I said, next week, Buzz is going to do some stuff. We're going to look at campaign
ad campaigns, yeah,
ad campaigns and what have you between the parties and the individuals.
Okay.
And the night on election eve on the 7th,
Yep.
our last show before the election, I'm going to have an inspiring, hopefully, message for those of us, for the 10 of us who gather here each week. And for anybody else who happens on the show on YouTube and that. So thank you. Thank you for taking some time to be with us this week for this evening. Thank you. And I will let Buzz run the clock out.
Okay. Well, that'll be easy because we're just going to go back and revisit the website, guys. Don't forget to go there. Check us out at www.garagepolitics.com. Hop on over there. You can hit all our social media links, including the one for Rumble. Rumble is where we want you to go. So if you see there where it says Election Day, you can see the video there right in the middle of the website. That actually link takes you to Rumble. Hit like, subscribe, leave some comments if you want. The more subscribers we get, the closer we get to being able to go back live, which we'll carry live onto Rumble.
Yeah, you won't be able to leave comments on the website. I have not got security
at
fixed,
Rumble.
but at Rumble, yeah.
At Rumble.
Please
I was
leave.
just saying at Rumble.
I'm sorry, my bad. Please leave comments.
See what he does.
I know we've got I think
we've got a few comments.
Well, we have comments, but I think we're getting comments from 4 people right now.
Well, it takes time to grow. Patience, young grasshopper. You know, he's going back 10 years when we were actually on hundreds of micro FM stations across the U.S. and overseas and everything else. And but yeah, check us out on all our social media platforms. Facebook for now until we're banned. YouTube until we're banned. Rumble. He likes to tweet, and we haven't started TikToking yet, but that's coming. It's coming. But anyways, that about does us for here in the garage. We're going to come back next week, record another show for you, get it all up in all those fun platforms. Admin at garagepolitics.com. You got any... what?
Net. Admin at garagepolitics.net.
See, once again...
I've said it like half a dozen times.
I know, but I wasn't listening to you. What else is new? So with that, We're going to leave it at, if you got any comments or anything, send them in, admin@garagepolitics.net. We appreciate every one of you tuning in, checking us out each week. Subscribe, like us, and until next week, we'll see you in the garage.
God bless.